Hello viewers, you are watching the Doordarshan Kendra Kohima. Welcome to the panel discussion on drugs and rehabilitation. Like most parts of the country, Nagaland is not immune to the problems caused by drug abuse and substance abuse. So in this panel discussion, we have with us Mr. Abu Mere, the Director, Kripa Foundation. We have Mr. Rupin Sharma, the DG Prisons. We have Mr. Ilato, a recovery addict, to understand more about the problems here in the state caused by drugs, illegal drugs and drugs abuse. So moving on with that discussion, first of all, coming to you, Mr. Abu, if you could tell us about what is the trend of drug users here in the state of Nagaland?
I just wanted to give some background. See, when we say drug, alcohol also is a drug. So alcohol is the oldest drug in the world. So, but traditionally, as Nagas, we drink Naga rice beer. But during those days, during our forefathers' times, we don't have alcoholism problem. But when the problem started with Indian made liquor and also with the opiate drug use. The opiate drug use has started, or opium has started during the British time, but the pharmaceutical drugs and heroin started way back in 70s. And then it has been escalated in 80s. Also, in those days, in 80s and 90s, the heroines are coming from Myanmar side, Myanmar to Manipur, Manipur to Nagaland, Nagaland, and go out of the state. Of late, by late 90s and by 2000, the pharmaceutical drug use of cough syrup and other painkillers has become ramdam. And of late now, in the form of sunflower, it's adulterated heroin, has come into our state and it has been randomly used. And this adulterated heroin of this called sunflower is coming via Manipur, Imphal. And other drugs are coming from pharmaceutical drugs or brown sugars are coming via Assam, through Dimapur, some through Marani, and also from Tizit. So it's coming from various angles at present.
So we're seeing that there is an incessant increase in the number of drug users in here in the state. Mr. Rupin Sharma, from the police point of view, what has been, what is the rate, what has been the seizures, the arrests that have been made in this regard?
See, the Nagaland police has been active in countering the drug problem. They've made substantial seizures, but the seizures are mostly of ganja and certain quantities of tablets like spasmoproxybone and yaba and all. The other drugs which are a source of problem like heroin and smack and sunflower and all, the seizures of those are not very high in Nagaland. Now, two issues I would want to point out in enforcement matters here is that when we are catching the medico-legal drugs, whether it is alprazolam or spasmoproxybone or codeine or cough syrups and all, we are just catching the criminal or the user there. We are not going to the root of the problem from where these drugs are being brought into the state. Unless we start addressing that part of the problem, this will not get sorted out, because we have to do we have to make concerted effort to tackle that problem. Now, concerning the drugs like heroin, smack and all, again, yes, we are catching drugs, we are catching some people, but mostly what we are catching is the transporters or the couriers. We are not able to go to the root of the problem, and that is the issue. Unless we go to the root of the problem, the people who are either manufacturing them or storing them or the warehouses, it will not be possible for us to get to the root of this or solve this problem. Now, another issue, as my friend Abu has said, is that they started in, alcoholism was prevalent earlier, but drug abuse started in say 60s, 70s or something. But I think to begin with, we have to start with an awareness campaign to tell people that as per the existing laws in the country, not only is it bad for your health, but it is also illegal to possess drugs or use drugs. So, unless we start, the state or the other NGOs or agencies or even the recovered addicts and all, unless we start a concerted effort an awareness campaign, nothing will come out because people will be afraid or they will have that stigma to come up and report to us. So I think we should start with an awareness campaign first.
Okay. On that note, would like to hear from you, Mr. Ilato. If you could tell us about your journey so far. How did you start getting into drugs, and then how did you recover from it?
Mula childhood days te dolo do moi bisi age chutu tamdara suru hala hoise 14 15 age tamdara drug te use kara suru hoise to age time te dolo do kombi moge expect karna ki moi ek din do drug ke digu jabo gune nijabe nya expect be karna ki moi drug ke digu gune to time de moi kitab pore tamde dolo do babla puri thagise aru bisi babla pure la thagise aru family wara bi expectation bisi thagise being the eldest son moge bisi expect karaise ki एक दिन तो बोला इन्हें बाबा माँ के मुताबिक करे मानो भी होगा इंडिया को ने तो मूवी मिला लाइफ ते मूवी एक ता देख रही वो इन्हें तो देख रहे हैं किंतु कौन इसने आस्ते आस्ते फ्रेंड सर्कल खान लाते मोई मिला साथी खान तो लो तो मोई छुट्टू तम दोरा मिला तो लो तो मोई बड़ा एज तावर खान लाते मिला लाए बिसी थी से तो एज तावर खान लाते मिला तो लो बिया से कौन हुआ किंतु मोई कंपनी तो बिया खान लाते चूज करी से कि ताहन तो यूज़ कर रही से तो आगे दिखे था तो मोई बिसी ट्राई करो मन ला हुई से तो इन्हें ट्राई करा तो लो तो आस्ते आस्ते तो खाओले शुरू से तो एक ता मजा लगी से खाओले शुरू ने ताला निशा तो एंजॉय करा शुरू से तो आस्ते आस्ते खाई थे इन्हें तो पीछे तो ना जाने इन्हें डिपेंडेंट हो जैसे बेसी देरी भी टाइम लगे ना डिपेंडेंट हो बोले तो एडिक हो जाए तो पीछे तो मैं तो यूज़ ना करें तो विड्रॉल पाओले ला शुरू जैसे ना खाले तो गाँव दुख पाए कथा को ना पाए इरिटेटिंग हुए घुमावा ना पाए गाँव खान जॉइंट्स खान बेखाओ सो इन्हें करने मैं एडिक्शन आस्ते आस्ते प्रोग्रेस हो तो मैं तो एडिक्शन तो इन्हें आस्ते आस्ते प्रोग्रेस करा तम तो कौन सा मैं स्टडीज काम दे भी बेसी एफेक्ट हुई मैं स्टडीज दे भी मानु निचना पढ़े ना पारे जैसे मैं स्कूल पर भी स्कूल दे मिस कर दिया भी बेसी हो जैसे और मैं हैबिट खान मैं कैरेक्टर खान भी बेसी चेंजेस हो जैसे मैं एटीट्यूड खान भी कि मैं आदत खान पहला तो बिया ना था खान भी सब और खा तम दे और बिया ला खा बेसी हो जैसे शुरू तो हैबिट चेंज हो जाला देखता तो मिसा खुआ बड़ा शुरू होला थे तो मैं एडिक्शन सपोर्ट कर निम्ते मैं बेसी मिसा को बोले मैं एडिक्शन कवर कर निम्ते बेसी मिसा को बोले ला तो इन्हें भी शुरू करी तो पीछे तो मिसा को पीछे तो मानो के धमकी दिया मानो ला चोर को बोले ला लाइफ ती कितना भी एक्सपेक्ट ना करे फैमिली वाला भी एक्सपेक्ट ना करे निजा भी एक्सपेक्ट ना करे ला इन्हें सिचुएशन भी पुंजी से कि मैं मानो के मिसा को बोले ला मैं मानो ला सामान चोर को बोले ला इन्हें यहाँ ला सिचुएशन भी पुंजी से कि लोग मैं एडिक्शन सपोर्ट करे निम्ते तो बेसी सेल्फिश एक भी हो जैसे कि मानु कारण ना भावे निज कारण भावे कि लगले त्या मैं मुला दोष लबले निम्ते मैं के करो लागे गाँव दुख पा दले तो रिलीफ करो निम्ते के करो लागे तो भगवान मानुला दुख तो ना भावे तो निया करने मुला एडिक्शन लाइफ जा दले मानु की भी दुख दिया से एट द सेम टाइम निज भी प्रॉब्लम बेसी फेस करा लाभी थे तो कि लगले मैं यहाँ प्रॉब्लम फेस करा दले दुइन मुला एडिक्शन देते मैं किता भी एक्सपेक्ट ना करा जेल खान भी जाला फेस करी ओवरडोज भी बेसी बार फेस करी तो किता भी लाइफ एक्सपेक्ट ना करा इन्हें सिचुएशन फेस करा तो मैं पेरेंट्स खान तो एक तो खान भावना करी कि मैं जेल दे रखी तो बेसी भल हो इन्हें भी भावना करने 10 days में खाला टाइम दे तो आजिकाली निचिना NGOs खान इन्हें बेसी भिड़ा थे इन्हें आउटरीच वर्कर आई मीन इन्हें सोशल वर्कर खान मानु के मतलब करे इन्हें ला इमान बेसी थे ना आजिकाली निचिना कमती थी तो मान तो इमान अवेयरनेस भी थे ना कि रिहेब सेंटर थे डिटॉक्स थे मैं पेरेंट्स खान भी अवेयर थे ना तो इन्हें फर्स्ट थिंग तो पेरेंट्स खान भावना करें बेसी बदमाश हो खाओ शुरू हो जेल दे लै जाए ठीक समझाई दी इन्हें भावना करें जेल दे लै जाए तो जेल दे रखिए तो मैं भी मैं मन तो फुल अफ रिसेंटमेंट भी थी कि इन्हें एक जगह मैं रखी दिया तो उन्हें तब गुसिया तो मैं इधर एक मन थे तो जेल दल जाओ दल तब मैं बेसी बिया शिके लाभ हो जाए जेल दे जाओ दल तो अलग अलग केस पर आला भी थी तो सब लादे मिंगल कर सब लादे कथा कर तो एक लादे टाइम पास कर कोना एक ला खिसा खान कब कम एक्सटॉर्शन ला केस खान आब कम रेप केस ला आब कम दल तो चोर ला केस आब सो इन्हें ला एक्सपीरियंस खान शुनी थी कम पेटलर खान आब खिसा खान शुनी थी तो इन्हें कर दल तो मिली थे तो दिमाग भी इन्हें ला स्टिक हो जाए खूब भल पॉजिटिव खान भावना भी आगे पारे तो इन्हें जेल रिलीज हुआ पीछे दल नेक्स्ट दल ओला पीछे तो नेक्स्ट जेल दे आगे और शुरू हो कि टाइम दे दूसरा क्राइम पर एक्सटॉर्शन केस पर सो इन्हें थी तो एक एस एन एडिक मैं भी प्रॉब्लम बेसी फेस करने आई और সাদল মুভি বেশি মন দে তো ছাড়ি বলে মন ইনি আলাদা থাকি থাকে হলে কিনিয়া ওভারকাম করবো তুই না পারে আলাদা থাকিছে ইনি আলাদা টাইম বেশি থাকিছে কিন্তু আস্তে আস্তে থ্রু সাথে হালাতে কমা বড়া কইনে কৃপা ফাউন্ডেশন লা রিহ্যাব লা কইছে তো তাদের ইনি ট্রাই করেছে তো তাদের রিহ্যাবতে যাইছে রিহ্যাবতে যাওয়াতে তাদের বেশি লার্ন করব পারিছে কিন্তু আমি তাদের রিহ্যাবতে 12 স্টেপস প্রোগ্রাম থাকে আমি তো প্রোগ্রাম ফলো করে তো রিহ্যাবতে যা আলাদা একটা ভাল দলে দলে তো মই দেখিব পারে তো আজি মই তো চলাব পারে তো আছে কি রিহ্যাবতে যাওয়া দলে তো দাওয়াই ছাড়ো বলে তো কোনো দিগদার নাই কোন কোন হলে ভাড়াভাবে ছাড়ি যায় হলে কথা দেয় আরও কিলে খাই যায় কিলে রিলেপস হয়ে যায় তো আছে কিন্তু রিহ্যাবতে যাওয়া তো একটা লাভ পা ধরে মই রিহ্যাব পড়া জানিব পাৰিছে কি ওলাইছে হলে খাও মন হলে কাৰ্ভিং আইলে আৰ্টছটো আহিছে হলে মই কিনিয়া ওভাৰকাম কৰিব কিনিয়া কোপ কৰিব চ' এইটোহান তাদের পৰা শিকিব পাৰিছে ইনিয়া ওলাই এইটোহান আজি লাইফটো এইটো থ্ৰু ষ্টেপ লা খান এপ্লাই কৰি আছে এতিয়া ইনিয়া কৰিনে মোকে বেছি হেল্প কৰি আছে ৰিহ্যাব লা প্ৰগ্ৰাম পৰা ইনিয়া ওরা মুভি তো রিকভারি দিয়ে আহা দলে দলে একটা ফিল করেছে কি মুভি একটা ইন্ডিয়াতে সার্ভিস দিব মন কি লগে মহান সাথী খান ভাই খান বেশি এটা বি খা খান বেশি আছে আর এটা তো কবলে এভরি হাউস হোল্ডে একটা এডিক্ট তো থাকে নিচিনা আছে তো মুভি ইন্ডিয়া ফিল্ডে কাম করব ইন্ডিয়া লা মন থাকিছে আর থ্যাংকস মহলা ডাইরেক্টর কৃপা ডাইরেক্টর আবু তাই ওরা বি মগে ফোন প্ল্যাটফর্ম দিনে মগে ওইটো ফিল্ডে কাম করব দিছে তো আজি মই ODIC the Kripa Foundation the outreach worker করে আছে outreach worker করে তো মই কাম তো মই যাব মানুহ হাঙ্গে মোটিভেট করব আর কলোনি খান দিবে অ্যাওয়ারনেস প্রোগ্রাম দিব স্কুল খান দিবে অ্যাওয়ারনেস প্রোগ্রাম দিব ইন্ডিয়া করে তো যা আছে আর কমা ক্লাইন্ট হাঙ্গে লব যাব তাই হাঙ্গে সাথে হাঙ্গে লইন যাইনে তা হাঙ্গে রিহ্যাবতে ট্রিটমেন্ট করে দিয়ে আছে আর কমা দলে তো ট্রিটমেন্ট যাবলে না পারে আলা নলে ইন্ডিয়া কিবা সিচুয়েশন থাকলে আমি অস্তি লাভি আছে তো মাল আল্ট্রোপিন দিয়ে দাৱাই দিয়া লাভি থাকি আছে আৰু কমা সিচুয়েশন তো নিয়াবি আছে কি তাই এতিয়া অস্তি খান দিয়ে নহলে তো রিহ্যাব খান দিয়ে কিবা না যাইলে হোম ডিটক্স করলে হৈ যাব চ' এনিয়া লাদে এইটো মহলা ডাইৰেক্টৰ লাদে কথা ক'লে মই তালাদে কথা কৰিছে তো তাই পৰা মোকে কোনোবা মেডিচিন খান দিছে তো এইটো পৰা মই হোম ডিটক্স কাম বি আজি জইচন টক তো কৰি নাই কিনে আছে তাহলে হোম ডিটক্স কাম বি কৰি দিনে তো হোম ডিটক্স কৰা তামতে তো তাই হাঙ্গে ঘৰে যাইনে ডেইলি যাব তাহাঙ্গে কাউন্সেলিং দিব তাহাঙ্গে দাবাই দিব ইনিয়া করনে যা আছে তো এইটো আছে মই লাফিল কাম কৰি
রিকভার হইনা মানুকে হেল্প কৰি আছে ইন দ্যাট সেন্স
ইয়া মই এটা তো ইনি রিকভারি থাকি আছে আর ইনিয়া সার্ভিস দি আছে
Okay, so we've just learned from our Mr. Ilato, a former drug addict, that he was introduced to drug abuse at a very young age when he got to mingle with people elder to him. He have mentioned that it was unintentional. The urge to try it has led to addiction, and it took him a lot of time to recover. At that time, at a very young age, when a lot of support were not being provided. But now, with the help of NGOs like the Kripa Foundation, Mr. Abu is here with us. We'll get to know further about how it is helping drug users in the state. But the foundation has helped him recover, and now Ilato is reaching out to more people, more drug users, helping them come out of their drug abuse, helping them fight their withdrawal symptoms through rehabilitations. He also mentioned that during the time when he was a drug user, he was sent to jail several times, where it has only added to the problem. So I'll now go to Mr. Rupin Sharma and understand, he has mentioned that the being sent to jails, to prisons, only added to the problem, because he was introduced to more other people accused who were sent to jails. In this case, do we have policies, do we have reforms in jails, or do you provide rehabilitation for drug users who are sent there?
Frankly speaking, except for Dimapur Central Jail, we don't have a program. Actually, there are some parts which are a legal problem as well as an administrative problem. I discussed with Abu about say 4 months ago when the CDC team was there. There is a system that before a person is sent to jail, there is to be a medical legal examination. So I had discussed with him and also discussed informally with the High Court judges that when we are doing the medical legal examination, is there a possibility that the addiction part, dependence on drugs, can also be included in that medical legal examination. Now what happens is that a lot of criminals, a lot of people who are sent to the jails as normal criminals for a theft or a robbery or extortion or anything else, either they are coming to us for these crimes because they want money, and then they are involving themselves in theft or robbery. So that is one reason. The other reason is what he partly mentioned, that family khani koi de takhan ke jail te rakhile olo bhalo bo. So the family does not tell us that these people are drug addicts, they just send them for some theft or something. Now in both circumstances we end up with a sizable number of people. In fact, we conducted we did a small effort last year, and we found that almost 35% of our inmates are drug addicts or drug dependents, which is a huge number. Now we do not have a system of keeping them separate or keeping them in separate facilities or providing them regular medical treatments. I think that is a need of the hour. I think Abu was mentioning to me that the state should also, state means any government, the governments have to take care of the rehab process, and we should have regular medical facilities. Wherever required, the NGOs can help in the rehabilitation process or taking them out of the dependence syndrome. So that is essential. But I think the major problem that we face is that the family members are not able to accept that a person is a drug addict, and the person is not able to accept that he is a drug addict. So as I always say, that the diagnosis is the problem is the beginning of a treatment. If we do not accept that there is a problem, there is no treatment in the world. So I was very surprised when Inato said that almost every family will have a drug addict in Nagaland. This is a very, very alarming situation. I have had personal experiences where 2-3 of people known to me were drug addicts. So I tried to do a bit of survey, general survey, and I found that in Kohima town alone, if on any given point of time in a day, I think there will be at least 1,000 odd consumers come peddlers, and if each one of them is consuming about say 2 to 3 grams, we should have about say 3 kgs of heroin every day in Kohima. So if we multiply this by 365 days, we can imagine how big the figure is. The figure is almost like 1,200 kgs available in Kohima town alone. So again, I am not taking away any credit from the law enforcement agencies or police or customs or excise or others involved, but we need to realize that we have to make redoubled efforts, because what we are catching is not even 10% of the actual problem. And mind you, I am just saying it's like 1,000 kgs in Kohima town. If we go about entire Nagaland, it should be at least 5,000 kgs available per day. So this is a major problem. I think we need to address this. Not only the police but and the law enforcement agencies, but NGOs, consumers, peddlers, family members, drug addicts. I think everyone has to get involved in this effort on a war footing. Another request, if I can make through the Doordarshan to the public, is that if you find a person who is a drug addict or who is a smuggler, please have some interface either with an NGO or with the police or law enforcement. Don't solve among hani kotha korega na etu ki faisla kore dibo na koribi. Itu faisla kore diya par hi uthi jaya ase, because when we are taking decisions informally, the actual magnitude of the problem is never known to the police and the law enforcement agencies, which is creating a problem for us. So my request is that I think everybody needs to get involved in this effort. Wherever there are legal provisions, I think we should make use of the legal provisions. Another suggestion and another thing which has never been done in Nagaland and probably never been done elsewhere in the country, or very rarely, like the NSA Detention Act, which provides for preventive detention, there is also a law for preventive detention for drug smugglers. I think some of the bigger ones who are doing all this, I think there is a clear-cut case for them being put under preventive arrest, so that the source of manufacturing or trafficking, it dries up. Only then we will be successful in this war against drugs.
But like you mentioned, families, starting from the families, they're not able to accept that the person is a drug user. You've been dealing with drug users for many years now. How do you identify these problems, especially at a small unit like the family, where it starts, and how do you bring them to the rehabilitation centers? What kind of programs are being done? through your organization as well?
See, the first thing to get admitted in our rehabilitation center is one has to be willing to undergo drug treatment and to abide with the rules and regulations of the institution. So many a times, see, the main thing, as our DG sir has said earlier also, the awareness is the key. Many a times that the family members are not aware of the service available, or to identify either their loved ones are into drugs or not. So therefore, now prevention, so primary prevention is the key. To have a primary prevention, we need awareness. At present, if we see Nagaland state situation, we are looking at NDPS Act 27 only, Section 27A, which is those who consume or smuggle are punishable. We are looking at that only. But under NDPS Act, also we have a section called 64A, which provide immunity to punishment who are willing to go for treatment. Yes, NDPS Act is there. However, NDPS Act alone is not going to work. Health is a state subject. And our Prime Minister has also said in his Man Ki Baat, in his radio talk, that addiction is a psychosocial problem, medical problem. Even the International Narcotic Bureau President has said now we should not look at as a crime centered, but addiction we have to deal as health centered. Having said that, and under the Mental Health Care Act 2017, substance use disorder has put as a health subject. So now, having said that, it's high time that Nagaland state government should revisit our Nagaland state substance abuse prevention and treatment policy and make a holistic approach. Or else, at present, I'm very sorry to say this, but the policy is there, but it's just a paper, and there is no budget allocation at all to implement the program. However, out here, if we see the situation, the state government or the public is blaming the police, looking at 27A only. It's the police work. Police can keep itu duru lagi. But 27A alone is not going to solve the problem, because we have experience way back in 90s. Even our national workers has provided capital punishment to the drug users. And even the civil society has excommunicated drug users from their villages. Take fine and beaten up and all those things. Those tactics has not worked. Therefore, treatment has come, the scientific evidence-based treatment. Having said that, now we have supply control program. Another part is we have demand reduction program. So if those two do not go hand in hand, if we say we have to check on supply only, but if the demand is there, some smugglers will be there, the seller will be there. If the demand is not there, then there will be no sellers also. So we have to work hand in hand, both police, administration, NGOs, even the church has to come, because primary prevention is the key. Unless we do primary prevention through awareness program, we will not able to succeed, because demand reduction in treatment part alone, because when there are lots of drug users, we have how many treatment centers we have? Few NGOs are running the treatment rehabs, and we are not able to provide service even to 1 or 2% out of 100%. Now, it's high time, as I said, I wanted to reiterate that Nagaland state government should revisit and amend the policy, and as state subject, all the health and family welfare department has to establish detoxification center in all the district hospitals as well as rehabilitation center.
You mentioned that we have very few rehabilitation centers and very few NGOs working for this. The ones that work, are they inclusive? Like both, they work for both women and men drug users, or How is it like in the state? Because when it comes to drug users, we normally assume that it is men who is more into substance abuse.
Yeah, in Nagaland, unfortunately, we have only male treatment facility. We don't have female facility. Therefore, it's high time that we also start female rehabilitation center in our state. And the state social welfare department have the mandate to look into it. So I appeal the state government and social welfare department to start a rehab for female drug users.
Very briefly, Mr. Rupin Chama, if you could tell us what could be the way forward? How can NGOs and the state government collaborate with the police as well in this regard to fight the menace?
Yeah, as I said, I think the first thing to do is creation of large-scale awareness programs through social media, through individual counseling, through NGOs, through government interventions. That is the first thing. The second thing is the term I use is called destigmatization. We should destigmatize the drug users there. A lot of them are drug users as well as peddlers, but we should start destigmatizing them so that we don't look down upon them as bad elements in the society. We should look at them as victims in the society and start co-opting them into the system. So that is one. The last is law enforcement. I mean, obviously, health facilities, improvement of health facilities and rehab facilities and centers for both men and women is important. But last but not the least, I will give this analogy that yes, supply and demand are important, but if we remember there is this worm called tapeworm. The tapeworm grows from its head. Its scales grow from the head. So if you keep cutting the tail of the tapeworm, it will keep growing. Okay, so drug abuse is something like a tapeworm unless you smash the head, which means the bigger people who are supplying it, who are financing this trade or having large stocks, unless we are able to do that, if we try to tackle individual abusers or individual users, we will never be successful, because we will sooner or later, like the COVID times, we will start running out of the medical facilities and facilities for trying to improve them if the supply keeps coming. So we will have to smash the heads. From a law enforcement perspective, we will have to go after those people who are having bulk supplies or who are on the trade routes or who are couriers of large quantities of drugs. I think that is the only way out. I think this has to be tackled by all the law enforcement agencies of the state. I think we need to coordinate with neighboring state governments like Assam and Manipur, Mizoram also, and also with the national agencies and international agencies. I remember one inter-country workshop that I attended with Myanmar. I was aware that Nagaland has an acute problem of drug abuse, and when I said that Nagaland has a drug abuse problem, and then they asked me for the figures, the Myanmarese people said, tell us the quantity of the drugs. We don't have figures because hamakan to faisla kore to na basti village areas, we will do informally solve this problem. We don't know the magnitude of the problem, so how do we address it with Myanmar? So it is a problem where everybody has a stake. Tomorrow we don't know whether your child or my child or your family members or anyone may be a drug addict. I think a basic pointer for family members is if there is a change in behavior of your family members, I think that probably is the biggest pointer, that is the easiest pointer that there is something wrong with a child or a family member. If there is excessive spend of money, that is a pointer. If there is disturbance in sleep patterns or meeting family members, or the person is shying away from answering. So it is a whole baggage, it is a package of things and not a single thing to solve the problem.
While after you've mentioned about them coming out, changing the characters, he's also mentioned it before that the first thing that happened to him was lying.
Yes.
When such things happen, we are unable to identify the change in a person's character. For us people who are not into drugs, it may even be more difficult to identify also, because you've been dealing with them. How do you, what would you tell people dealing with such people to actually speak to them? Because you have to convince people to come talk to them. We have to talk to them when you're seeing changes in characters like this. But then because we do not know ourselves, we are unable to do that. So what would you tell people in the families when you're seeing slight changes in the characters like this? How could they deal with people, with drug users?
See, the first thing we have to understand is now, because of the changing of environment or modernizations, those days it's very easy to say, but now because of modernization, people sleep late, get up late, and all those things. So it's very difficult to say if you sleep late and all those, if you spend too much time in toilet and all those things. But one of the thing is, as my friend has already said, telling lie, become aggressive, and then start roaming with a new friends. He will start neglecting his old friends, making new friends. Those friends are not very gentle and so on. So we have to identify their personalities, and if they have a red eye and all those things. So now, having said that, then we have, that is the red light indicator. One may not be in substance use, but they might have those addictive personality. Those are the red line indicators that if we don't be, if we are not very careful with our loved one, if we don't spend quality time. When I say spend quality time, is trying to understand their emotions, their feelings, their ideas. So quality time may be few minutes only, maybe 2-3 minutes, 5 minutes a day. So try to understand them. Many a times what happens is the family members thinks, especially the mother's thinks that because his father is too busy out there, he don't spend time with his my son, he's become a drug user or alcoholics or whatnot. But we are here, what I'm saying is not the quantity of time, but quality time. Quality time can be just few minutes. Either you might be spending the whole day with your loved one, but if you are not spending quality time, then you will not able to understand his mental emotions and so on. So it's very important to spend your time with your loved ones. Thank you.
So through this conversation, we have learned that people have a lot. This requires the fight against drug abuse, requires collective efforts from the state government, from NGOs, from common people, from you, our viewers who are watching us, help create awareness. And with people like Abu Mary Rupin Sharma, also Ilato, who's been out there reaching out to people, creating awareness on the ill effects of drugs and substance abuse. I hope our efforts don't go in vain. And because we are all in this together, I call on our viewers to also help us create more awareness, because substance abuse eventually leads to social disruptions in the society. And we thank you for joining us in this discussion. Thank you to our panelists here, and thanks to our viewers for tuning in. I'm Madeline Imbersia, signing off from the Doordarshan Kendra.